Cheers, y'all.
Well. Welcome, my friends, to this fine radio program known as Smokin' and Toastin'. We are all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. Show number 135 is here, and our special guest today, Mr. Matt Booth from Room 101 Cigars.
You know what I love about doing the podcast in the actual studio?
Yeah?
I don't have to have pants on.
Yeah, that's a good thing about, anytime you can manage to do part of your job, whatever your job is, sans pants. It's always a good thing.
Pretty nice.
That's always a good thing. I was thinking, actually, as I was driving in to the show today, that, the little show up in the well accomplishes several different things. Definitely lets you know the show has started, whether you love it or hate it, right?
It establishes a party. Like in my head, you can't go in, after you do that, it's already at this level. You can't walk. Right. You can't sneak into it after that.
And then the other thing that I've noticed is it's a good way for us, for you and I, when we have a guest on the show, to know if they know anything about the show or not.
That's right.
Because I noticed last week, because we had Jared Hempstead from Balcones Whiskey was on, and as soon as I went into the well, you could see him smile like he knew what was going on. Clearly, he had actually watched or listened to the show before, right? But every now and then we'll get a guest on, and I go into the well, and they get this look of terror on their face.
What is happening here?
What have I agreed to do here on the radio? So anyway, it's always nice to know that our guest already knows a little bit about the show. Then I feel like maybe we terrorized them.
Jared was a lot of fun last week.
Jared was great, and boy, was that whiskey delicious.
Oh, yeah.
I have been enjoying the single malt all week.
Mm-hmm.
It has been absolutely wonderful, and you, I think, are
I
the
ended
same
up
about the
home
ride,
with
didn't
the
you?
ride.
Yeah,
it was just amazing, and my wife loves it, which means it's going to go twice as fast.
Yes, absolutely. We are brought to you, by the way, by B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth, and by B&B Lemon across the street from the B&B Houston location. We were at B&B Lemon a couple of weeks ago, and with any luck, by the way, the plan at least, it's a week away, but the plan is that we would be upstairs on the back patio at B&B next week.
We haven't been upstairs in a while.
Talking rum,
nice
drinking some fine stuff, smoking some cigars, and hanging out with our boy, our good friend Jeremiah. So we're excited about that. Plus, Jeremiah, just in case you're listening, Ian and I are coming to see you this weekend.
That's right.
We have big plans.
That's right.
Big plans. Eating, drinking, and bacon will be involved. So we got a lot going on in the show today. Matt Booth from Room 101 Cigars, one of the more colorful and interesting personalities in the cigar world, will be joining us. It'll be via the interview that we did with him at the Houston Whiskey Social just a couple of weeks ago.
He was just a little outrageous, wasn't he?
We got a chance to sit down with him. I'll just say this as a teaser. He really liked Ian a lot.
Matt Booth likes bears.
Yeah.
I didn't make that a shirt.
Anyway, but it was a lot of fun talking tobacco with him and getting some information about what's going on. And certainly Room 101 has really become a thing. And, of course, he took some time off, from doing cigars and then sort of came back to the fold. But his brand, is about more than just the tobacco. He does jewelry and he does other things. So it'll be fun to talk with him about what all of that is about. What else is going on? I think this is going to be really interesting. Pairing craft beer with Easter peeps.
With Easter peeps.
Yes. I'm not sure why you would want to do that, but with Good Friday and Easter on the
peeps?
Way. A very good friend of mine they're one of her favorite things in the world, but what she does, because she's weird, she buys the package, right? And then she pokes holes in the package so the Easter peeps become slightly stale and a little crusty on the outside, and that's when she eats them. That's how she likes them.
See, I think Nilla wafers are best when they're just a little bit stale.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think Nilla wafers are best when they're in a banana pudding, but that's just my,
A little bit stale.
Yeah, you can tell I grew up in the South. What's going on in the celeb spirit world? Sammy Hagar has a new tequila, and Bob Dylan's whiskey distillery is adding a performance venue, and it's going to open next year. So we'll tell you about about those things in the world of
he's really
celebrity
turning that into something.
Yeah, he's doing his best. And we reviewed a bottle of the straight whiskey here on the show, and it really was quite good. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't my favorite I've ever tasted, but it certainly didn't have that.
Let's put it this way: out of all celebrity whiskeys,
I
mean, come on,
right.
That's one of the top out of the celebrity branded.
It was better
whiskeys.
than Conor McGregor's, that's for sure. But then again, I could whip some up during the next break, and it'd be better than Conor McGregor's.
A lot of plastic bottles are better than the Conor McGregor.
Yes, exactly. So we're going to be trying some great things on the show today, or we hope they'll be great. Eighth Wonder from right here in our hometown of Houston, fun brewery.
You can actually see Eighth Wonder from your patio.
Yes, which is a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Yeah. The only thing about it is sometimes I go out to the patio in the evening and I go, oh, that looks like, should I go over there? Should I have
the answer is probably yes.
Probably yes, yeah. Eighth Wonder has kicked off what I believe is a series. It's their H-Town hip-hop series, and today we'll be trying BrewGK, which obviously is an ode to UGK, right?
Right.
And a Houston-based hip-hop act, of course, of some notoriety over the past couple of decades. But BrewGK is an apple Kolsch from Eighth Wonder, so we'll be trying that. You might want to put that.
They actually started a line of gin and vodka as well.
We're seeing that from a lot of breweries branching out into distilling, and we're seeing some of the distilleries branching out into craft brewing. So
and their vodka is called vodka flavored vodka.
I like that. It's a great idea, even though vodka doesn't really have a distinct flavor.
And my wife couldn't stop herself when we were there. We bought some of their hopped gin.
Oh, and what did you think of that?
It's interesting. We should have it on the show.
Oh, we totally should do that. You have to bring that in a future episode. That'll be good. Also on the program today, Odell Brewing. These guys have released this seasonal, one of my favorite IPAs in the world now, this seasonal one that we tried several shows back, which was the Wolfpicker IPA. I've been loving that and enjoying more of it than I really should. They've now released a limited edition Imperial Peach IPA called Tree Shaker. We'll be sampling that on the show today. And then, Ian, I think you're going to just absolutely be like right totally down, like 4 flat tires and the spare for the final beer of the show today, which is Firestone Walker's 2019 Sucaba Vintage. It's a Barleywine ale.
Yeah.
It's a 1 year only, and
I've had
Firestone
some of the
Cigars
before.
Firestone Walker can do no wrong, as we know. So, and a Dos Ron Solera 16 Años rum will be on the program today. So, a lot of fun stuff.
This show's downright adventurous.
It really is.
I was expecting it to be more hoppy since it's the Easter season.
Well, that's the obvious joke to go for, and so that's why we didn't go. But we'll be trying this apple Kolsch. In fact, why don't we just try it now?
You want to just break down?
Because I figure this one's probably best as cold as it can be, right? So just go ahead and try it now, and then afterwards you can tell me about.
You know what I like about this already is it's in a can, so there's no UV.
See, I knew you were going here. I knew
issues
it.
at all.
It's
nice and sealed. You don't have to worry about.
Well, hopefully you would want an apple Kolsch to be very fresh. So
I think so.
So this is BrewGK. So it'll be interesting. As far to the best of my knowledge, this is the first in the H-Town Hip Hop series. Maybe show that back to the camera. But
it smells like smells like apple. It's interesting. It's not a real bitter apple smell.
Kolsch style beer brewed with apple juice. It says. Brewed and canned by Eighth Wonder Brewery, and it's 5.7%, and that's about all we know about the BrewGK. Ian, maybe you can
put it on the
back over on the beer cam.
Beer rotation stand. Here, let's fire it up.
It's high-tech rotation.
That's the motor running there.
Yeah, and that's the sparkly music that you should have for any beer cam rotation. So it's basically just a Kolsch brewed with apple juice. They don't tell us a lot about it other than that's what it is.
All right, I'm waiting to see what you think of it because
I'm picking up.
You smell the apple.
Yeah, I'm picking up a little bit of apple on the nose, but mostly it just smells like a Kolsch, basically. Yeah.
But it smells like a sweet apple, like a red apple, not like I was expecking more of a green apple kind of smell.
You're right, which would be more tart, and this is more like the red apple, which is that. Well, it's like the apple pie, although this doesn't have that sugariness of an apple pie to it. But
what I find on the taste, and what's interesting too, is this is a very viscous Kolsch for what it
Kolsch,
is.
because Kolsch is usually a very light mouthfeel. Yes.
But what I find interesting is it tastes like a nice Kolsch with a hint of apple, but like if you ever peeled the apples and ate the peel.
Yes.
It's like right next to the peel kind of thing. So it's a little more on the bitter side, but it has that real fresh red apple kind of flavor to it, which is funny because it's actually brewed with apple juice from it instead of actually the apples.
I really think this is going to be a big trend this summer, and already is, really. These lighter beers, Kolsch's. I think we're going to see the Goza swing back around for a big, summer. The light beers, we had the Fireman's 4 Light on the show last week and really enjoyed that. To me, this is kind of in that same category. Very refreshing.
I think
very light.
I think it's an interesting Kolsch with a hint of apple. I think that would be the best way to describe this. Because in the bulk of the palate, I'm not getting a lot of that apple. But when in the aftertaste, on the finish, there's definitely a little bit of that.
I bet this would be great on draft, like really cold.
On
draft.
I'm actually wondering. I wonder if I get more apple if I let it warm up a little bit too.
That's also possible. You might want to try that. I'm going to
prep one for later.
As has been your practice of the past several
Well, there
weeks.
are certain beers that you know that they'll be fine no matter what you do.
Well, you might get a feel for that flavor warming up a little bit,
right?
You might get a feel for the apple.
Well, cold does tend to mask flavors, so
Yes, but it makes it so delicious and refreshing.
Brian put on here, by the way. Pairing craft beer with peeps. Step 1, open beer. Step 2, throw peeps away. Step 3, drink beer.
I like it. I'm not sure why you would want to pair craft beer with peeps, but there
was there was a meme I saw last year that was like how to enjoy a pumpkin beer, and that was step 1, open beer. Step 2, pour down drain.
Step 3, open good beer. Yeah, but some people really like pumpkin beers, and I always have at least one every fall. You know what I mean? And we've had some on the show here that have been pretty good. So
agreed. I find some of them are a little too much, but we had that one that tasted like the crust that was so good. That was from,
yes, I remember that.
Where was that one? That one was from like towards Galveston somewhere.
I believe that's correct.
Highland or something like that. It was really good.
It was delicious. So, Ian, tell me, did you smoke anything interesting this week?
Let me think about that. Yes, I did. I smoked, let me pull it up so I can remember the name of it and everything like that. I had all my notes on it, and my notes have evaporated, so apparently I didn't save them.
Well, that would be a thing.
But that's okay, because I do have a memory, and I use it once in a long while. So I had a Curivari Aristoteles. I think that's how you say it. Curivari Aristoteles.
Okay.
Aristoteles.
I don't
know how to say this, but Aristotle.
I'm going to go with Aristoteles.
Okay, so this was the hold on. So that's the problem is I don't remember what it was called. Oh, it was the Metafisica.
The Metafisica
cigar.
Okay.
Metafisica cigar. So a friend of mine actually, I met up with him on Monday, and I can't smoke in my vehicle anymore.
Oh, yes.
So I stopped on the way home at the cigar shop, and me and him went and found a coffee shop and smoked outside.
Nice.
And that was all right. So he recommended. He's like, "This is a good cigar." So I picked it up, and I sat and smoked that cigar last night. And the appearance on this cigar was a bit rustic. It was a bit veiny. Bumpy. It was not a real smooth looking cigar. It was pretty in a very natural leaf kind of way. It was about a medium brown in color. The construction was nice. It was firm but not too firm. I used a punch on it, and the draw was awesome. The draw was really nice. It was perfect. The pre-light. The pre-light draw on this was nice and easy. It had lots of leather and cedar and hay and kind of barnyard kind of like tobacco and barnyard kind of flavors are really, really nice in there.
When you say barnyard, this is a positive flavor.
There's a
aroma, right?
I don't really know how to describe it without saying the word manure, but there's a slight
Which has a negative connotation.
Yeah, I don't because it doesn't smell
But there's a richness. Well, think about peat.
But there's a richness to the soil that's like that. Or peat has
peat
that
is based on decomposition.
Yeah,
but,
right.
But there's still something about that aroma that is enjoyable.
Well, there's a very distinct. If you've ever been on a farm that's had animals, whether it's horses or whatever, there's a very distinct smell. It's that rich soil plus the manure plus everything else. I mean, it's just this, and the hay and everything else going on, and that's what I call barnyard. And it's to me, it's a really nice smell. It's like it takes you to a place.
It's sort of earthiness and fresh,
it's not,
right?
Yeah, and even though I say it has some of that manure smell in it, it's not a bad thing necessarily. It's just it's a natural smell.
Right.
Now I wouldn't want my face in a pile of manure or anything to smell that or anything, but you get the idea. It has a little bit of that.
No, I got
so anyway, it has some of that barnyard and kind of hay kind of smells and things like that really, really was pleasant. A lot of leather and a lot of cedar going on. The initial light on this, it had a very mild initial light. Like a lot of them are very peppery at the beginning. This had a very, very light amount of pepper in the initial light. It had a lot of like dank hay kind of flavors, tangy hay kind of flavors that were really nice. It had a lot of leather, like that fresh leather smell. It had a lot of cedar going on. Those were the real primary things that I went through the flavor. The first third of the cigar maintained kind of the same thing. Like there's a little tiny bit of pepper in the back, but just enough to be interesting. That tangy hay was really up front in the first third of this. The leather and other flavors as well were just kind of sneaking around there. And then I started picking up like a little bit of oak astringency to it, like dryness to the end, like you get in a good like dry cab or something like that.
Dry wine, yeah.
And at this point in time, I decided to go do a whiskey sniff. So I went inside, and my Hudson 4-grain won on that one,
nice.
which is actually a very complex whiskey. So I had that with it, and it paired absolutely wonderful, and it actually brought out that cedar and oak substantially. So at this point in time, I'm not sure if the cigar was influencing the whiskey more than the whiskey influencing the cigar, but it really brought out the cedar and oak in the cigar, which was fantastic flavors. The burn was perfect. The first ash I let go a little too long. Of course, it fell right on me because I'm dumb like that.
What happened? Yeah.
So I was wary. Like usually, by the time the first ash falls on me, I know how long to let the second ash go. But anyway, the burn was fantastic on it. The cigar drew great the whole time. There was nice big flavors. This was not like the smokiest cigar I've ever had. I like cigars that have big, like silky smoke. Right. This was not one of those. But man, the flavors were so good. All through the second third of the cigar, the woody flavors were really, really standing out. When I got to the last third of the cigar, again, the burn was just outstanding on this thing. The burn was perfect. The draw was perfect the entire way through. Construction was great. The last third of the cigar started ramping up. That tangy hay started getting really, really prominent, and then started picking up some pepper flavors in the back, kind of a sweet and like a sweet spiciness to it that just kind of lingered around the back of the palate, like the outside edges of the tongue back here. And that was really nice, too. At this point in time, I went in for another whiskey sniff, and oddly enough, my Woodford Reserve got it this time.
Nice.
And yeah, not bad, right? And
you're doing all right.
Yeah. And it seemed like this cigar was a bit of a whiskey chameleon. Like you could just, I felt like you could almost put any whiskey with it. And the flavors in this cigar would just kind of like, depending on what the whiskey tasted like, would
almost
just
like
adjust themselves,
Yeah,
go,
that's very cool.
well, you got that kind of whiskey, so you're going to taste this now. And to me, the last bit of that cigar was a little more of that sweet spice, and tangy hay with a little of the pepperiness, and but it also had a little bit of a fruitiness kind of underlying the last bit. I smoked that cigar till it was burning my fingers. I got to tell you, I give it a 5.5 to a 6. I think it was in the neighborhood of an $8 cigar. I forgot to look that up. I put it on my list, but obviously I didn't save it. But I will tell you, frankly, if it was a $10 cigar, I still get a 5 easy. You get everything you're looking for. You get a nice complex cigar. It was a smaller shape. If it was a bigger shape for that same size, might have gotten a little higher. It's a great cigar. How about you?
Awesome. I tried something that I saw had been rated very highly, the Villiger Le Flor de Ynclan, the Robusto. Le Flor de Ynclan, which is Ynclan. So
I've seen that.
I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Medium brown cigar, a little bit rustic, but nice looking. It comes wrapped in an Ecuadorian wrapper. It has Nicaraguan and Dominican fillers. The pre-light was earthy with a little hint of sweetness. So I used a V-cut, and I lit it up. And there was this nice burst of pepper in the beginning, big but not overwhelming. I smoked it just a bit. It settled down after about a half an inch or so. However, from the beginning, it didn't seem like the wrapper wanted to burn right. You ever have that happen? Where it's like, maybe the interior of the cigar is burned okay, but the wrapper...
Does it like it kind of separates and burns on its own time? I've had that,
Yes, exactly. Now, I had just... I want to... point out.
I'm looking at the picture that you have on there, and I have to tell you, the end of it, the foot of the cigar where you light it, looks a little on the dry side just in the picture.
Okay, so let me tell you about the cigar. Bought it from a local, brick and mortar retailer.
A reputable retailer.
Very reputable. Had tons of good cigars there. And I brought it home, put it right into my humidor. It was there for 3 days before I smoked it. Okay, so it should have been properly humidified at the tobacconist, and it should have been properly humidified in my humidor. In fact, I've smoked other cigars out of that same humidor this same week. So if the problem should not have been my humidor or the place that I bought it, I can say with fairly good assurance. As you can see in the pictures, though, this burn was weird and uneven from the very beginning. What seemed like an issue with the wrapper. I touched it up several times trying to even out the burn, but without much luck. Now, there was some nice flavor, the floral notes, white pepper, some creaminess, but it burned too hot. And so this harshness started to kind of replace that creaminess as it smoked. Once I took the band off, the wrapper cracked.
Oh.
And then, the experience went pretty much downhill. So I've been smoking some Nica Libres, a $3 cigar, from out of the very same humidor over this past week. And even with a little bit of wind on my patio, these have all smoked perfectly with no burn issues.
All right, I need to put this.
I wish I could say
put this out to our customers right now and to you. Whenever you see Nica Libres on sale, please let me know.
Yeah,
I don't sit and check the site, so if you're one of those people, please let me know.
Yeah.
That is an outstanding cigar, and especially for $3, that is a killer cigar.
It really is. And like I said,
that burn is terrible.
I've had a couple of those this week, and it has all been good. Even with a little bit of wind on the patio, no burn issues. I wish I could say the same for the Villiger. I did some research. This cigar, Ian, recently got a 93 rating. It was named by one magazine the number 10 cigar of 2017.
Wow.
This Villiger, Le Flor de Ynclan. I don't know what to say. My experience was the opposite. And
so that the listeners can understand too, there's a bit of a delay between when the video actually comes out and when we're talking about it. So that will explain a little bit why I'm seeing some of these pictures a little later.
You're seeing some of the burn pictures.
But that is
well, there you're seeing what I'm seeing on my display now.
That looks like you put one of those little loads in there and lit a cigar somewhere and pow.
And trust me,
that's
I
crazy.
worked on tending this.
Oh,
and it was
goodness.
bad until I took the band off, and then when I took the band off, it went from bad to impossible.
Well, finish your review, and I got something to add.
For the number 10 cigar of 2017, I have to tell you my experience was just the opposite. And this is a $10 to $11 cigar. I'm comparing it to a $3 Nica Libre. Sorry, Villiger. Price to quality 3.5.
Ow. Wah, wah, wah.
Well, I mean, you can look at the pictures and see.
No, I can see that.
It's like, and you know what? I'd even be willing to admit maybe I didn't humidify it properly, or maybe I bought it from a bad batch, but I bought other cigars on that same trip, and they've smoked fine. So I can't find any excuse really for the cigar to have been bad.
So here's the thing, like Half Wheel, Charlie over at Half Wheel, those guys, when they review a cigar, they always smoke 3 of them. which I think is really, really smart. Now, we're a little more lax about it. We're just trying to give you an experience that
This
we're
is
having.
what happened with this cigar.
This is what happened
Yep.
with the cigar. But I will tell you, and we've given some cigars, a few chances. I will tell you that I think that's a better way to review, because there is times where you may get the bad one.
And it happens. I get it. Cigar rolling is not a science; it's an art.
No, it's an art.
There's
very
some
much.
science to it, but it really is an art form. So,
Right.
So occasionally you're going to get one that just doesn't come out as good. It's just like, just like a great basketball player is going to occasionally have a bad game.
Right.
It's just the way it's going to happen.
So I just want to point out that if it rated that high, it's probably worth a second try at some point. But that's a little tough when you're spending $10
yes,
per.
it really is. Once you top $8, it's a tough.
And
second
I did
try
not
for me.
happen to smoke this cigar this week, so I did not actually happen to buy you one.
Well, that's interesting because the last time I had this sort of an issue, that's what happened.
That's exactly what happened.
And-
You ended up smoking 3. We ended up, between the two of us, we ended up smoking 3 total.
And you gave the same cigar an 8.
I gave it a high review because
Yes.
it was outstanding.
Yeah, our price to quality scale, just for those who are, maybe catching the show for the first time. If we give something a 5, it means you get exactly what you paid
Yes.
for, and so a 5 is a good rating. Anything above a 5 is a great rating. Anything below a 5 means you didn't get what you paid for. So a 3.5.
Yeah, it might still be a
Means-
decent cigar, but this one was not, though. That's all construction.
There was some flavor, but the construction.
Yeah, but you
ruined it.
also
Yeah.
said the flavor was actually pretty good until it got too hot.
Until it got too hot, and then the construction not only ruined the smoking experience, but ruined the flavor as well.
Right.
So sorry, Villiger. Maybe I will try you again. For it to get that kind of rave reviews, there has to be something going on. So.
Yeah, I mean, send us one. Let's talk about it again.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so we want to talk in our next segment to Matt Booth. He's with Room 101 Cigars. This is a segment that we actually did at the big event, the Houston Whiskey Social, where we had such a good time. But it was fun talking to Matt, so we'll present that to you next. Talking Tobacco with Matt Booth from Room 101. You are listening to Smokin' and Toastin'. We'll be right back. All right, so welcome back to Smokin' and Toastin'. It's show number 135. Our program is brought to you by B&B Lemon, a wonderful pub with a great pub menu and some really amazing cocktails. It's located right across the street from B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and then you'll find B&B Butchers and Restaurant in the shops at Clear Fork.
Go see Chastity behind the bar there,
well.
Lemon.
Yeah,
she is outstanding.
She can make some cocktails.
Yeah, she's so fun.
Really, really good at it. So, all right, want to say big props to our buddies Christopher Hart and Alan Denny.
Who?
Well, no one cares about those guys. But they were part of an event that clearly a lot of people cared about. The Houston Whiskey Social that they put together was really quite a success. And,
you see what happens to my face when
I know you
Houston
just break
Whiskey
into
Social?
a smile when I say
so
it.
fun.
It was fun, and we had a good time. We had a chance to obviously sample a lot of great things and smoke some cigars, and we had a chance to catch up there with Matt Booth from Room 101, who actually worked with Chris, who no one cares about, to put together a really cool little cigar.
Houston Whiskey Social cigar,
Yes, yes. And so we'll talk a little bit about that, plus with what's going on now at Room 101 with the very interesting and colorful Matt Booth. All right, Smoking and Toasting Live. We are at the Houston Whiskey Social, and boy, it's amazing the people you run into here. Matt Booth from Room 101 is here. Matt, it is a pleasure to meet you in person.
It's my honor. Thanks for having me.
Now, from from the service to being a jewelry maker,
That's correct.
to being a cigar blender and sort of a brand master, I guess, of Room 101. How do you make those transitions from one to the other to the other?
That's a lot of things going
Well,
on.
the original philosophy behind Room 101 was to create a brand that was akin to a traditional European luxury lifestyle collection. So, for example, the Dunhill of 1920 by 2020, right? Mm-hmm. So I call the style techno retro. It's traditional craft product with modern stylization. Stylization and technique, implemented whenever and wherever it doesn't pervert the craft basis of the product, but enhances it. That's the nature of what we do at Room 101.
So you're making jewelry. You decide cigars are.
Am I doing all right? Doing all right?
Awesome.
So nervous.
So you're making jewelry. Do you decide cigars are next? Did you already know anything about blending cigars at that
So
point?
I enjoyed smoking cigars, and I definitely felt that cigars were the way to consume tobacco in terms of what was in line with my brand's philosophy, right? So a cigarette is really an injection system for nicotine, and a cigar is a way to properly enjoy tobacco, in my opinion. So, I had begun making a smoker's accessory collection in sterling silver, lighter housings, and modifying some cigar cutters, Zycar cutters, and whatnot. And the opportunity to work on creating a cigar materialized for me, and I took it.
Man,
And the rest is history.
The style on the cigar bands is so awesome, so attractive to me too. Like, do you do the art yourself? Do you have an artist do that? What do you have?
It's a mixture. A lot of the early Room 101 artwork was hand drawn by a dear friend of mine as a tattoo artist.
There's almost a Mayan kind of influence to some of the older bands and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, there was an Asian influence. A lot of artwork and sculptural work that I saw when deployed in Japan inspired some early jewelry designs in my collection, and then they were very iconic. They were very.
No, you're the one talking. It goes like this.
Oh, sorry. I got carried away. Hey, I'm sorry. Or should I hold it? How do you want to do this? How do you feel more comfortable?
It looks more rock star when you're holding it.
You think?
Yeah.
How does
That actually. I can't. I'm going to give you 20 minutes to quit that. All right.
And I'm gonna
You see?
say
You
that
see?
I'm not super comfortable telling you how that made me feel.
Another satisfied customer, right here. No. So the idea with those designs is that they would in 2D communicate the source material of my original jewelry designs, and like the Fu, the icon, it's the protective character, an Okinawan shishi dog. That was one of our original house marks, and later came the cherry blossom logo. So all of the artwork that's associated with my products is all done by hand, because there's, in my opinion, there's something that's perfectly imperfect about the touch of the human hand.
Yeah, it's 20 minutes. 20 minutes.
Touch of the human hand.
It's really intricate too. Like when you look close at the labels that you have out, they're incredibly intricate. It's more intricate than almost any other cigar label I've seen.
Wow, thanks, man. Those are big words.
Yeah, it's the best I got.
Okay,
I was a little flabbergasted when you started touching my hand.
I get it. You pulled it together though.
Noted.
He's good. Like that.
He's a pro.
He's good. Like
He's a pro.
That. You took some time off recently from doing cigars, and then jumped kind of like head first back in. Came with a new blend. Did you know you were coming back in when you took the time off, or did you go out, clear your head, and decide I really want to be doing what I was doing?
It was really time to recalibrate and reset for me and get back to some of the core components of the industry and the craft that initially caused me to fall in love with it, and so that was the purpose of that break.
And did it work the way you wanted it to?
It did.
Good.
It did.
Good. So I want to ask you about two blends. First, the Farce, which seems to. I want to call it your crowning achievement. Would you?
Not the farce.
Farce. Okay. So I want to call it your crowning achievement. In fact, that's why I put "the" in front of it, because it just seems like a sort of a royal thing. Where did this blend come from? What can you tell me about it?
So Farce was a very interesting project because it was something that was more complex in construction and composition than anything that I had ever made previously. And many times I've been asked by fans of our brand and friends, when am I going to get back to doing stuff that's similar to what I was doing 5-6 years ago, And although we might have some throwback projects in the works, the purpose or the sentiment behind Farce was to show what we're capable of today. in terms of blending and composition, things of that nature. So it's a very complex branded blend.
A blended brand.
Wow. My English is not working today.
But that's what I love about it, is the complexity of the cigar. It's just, it really just kind of keeps unfolding as you smoke it. And I love it.
True.
Yeah.
And that was the hope to achieve with that, and I think we did.
Tell me about this. Would you call it a micro blend, a micro batch that you've done with Stogies in Houston and with Chris Hart and the guys from the Houston Bourbon Society?
Yes. So our micro batch program is just that. It's they're things that are done in extremely small numbers. It's bespoke. It's the best way I could describe it. And they tried the blend that I made for Stogies for an event last year. And they were very much enamored with the blend and asked if we could do something similar for their event here. So I was honored to do so.
When you do blends like that, the micro batch, is this something that, are you using maybe something that you can only find in small quantities in terms of some of the tobacco that you source?
Yeah, a lot of them are made with, entrails of components from multiple productions that could never see the light of day in any other scale because we simply don't have the materials or any combination of limitation on production. So,
Matt Booth from Room 101. Matt, I think of you as part of the sort of the...
Do you think of me?
I do, and I think of you, probably far too much. Probably more than you'd be comfortable with knowing.
Right now?
That's because of the beard thing. Yeah. No, I think of you as part of what I would call like sort of the new guard of cigar blenders, and there's so many of the newer boutique brands that have done things like you've done. Do you think that the new guard, as I would call them, do you think this has been a really good thing for the cigar industry? Does it? Would you worry at all about our maybe moving to all these new styles and new blends and new ways of doing art and all of this that are not necessarily in the more traditional cigar making way?
Well, the reality is the craft is the same and the style is different, and a person like myself that was not generationally vested in the craft is going to have a tremendously different approach and direction to the way they compose a cigar versus a traditionalist. The cigars may be built the same way. I mean, you would hope that they're built as a true premium product. But the personality, your personality, if you're genuinely vested in what you're doing, it can't help but to sing through in the end result, right? So, yeah. And I think the true magic is when someone like myself and a traditionalist get together. For example, the factories we work with, they're guys that are very much so in the box of tradition, generation to generation in their family, and you both challenge each other in a very healthy and positive fashion. And the end result is unlike what either one of you could have ever accomplished on your own.
Well, the cigar, for example, that you did with AJ Fernandez, that is a wonderful collaboration. Just a completely different, in my mind, from what AJ would do on his own or from what you've released so far for Room 101.
I agree completely, and that's a great example.
Yeah. We sure appreciate you taking a couple of minutes with us. Want to invite you to come back and be a guest on the show when we can sit down and you can talk to us about things in more depth. But I did want to ask you before we let you go, is there anything coming down the pike, anything you can tell us about future projects that are okay to talk about?
We have various projects in various stages of development that we cannot talk about.
And I understand that. That's what I'm saying. Is there anything you can tell us?
Just that there's going to be a lot of exciting stuff coming from Room 101 this year and some in the very near future. So I definitely think that this is, with the relaunch and retooling of our business, so much has gone on in the last 2 years, but this is really, this is truly our year. So you'll see a good deal coming from us.
Yeah, it's all very exciting. Ian, anything else you wanted to ask?
I just wanted to say I appreciate the cigar being brought out as a stylistic commodity on top of everything else. I think that's pretty awesome.
I think it is awesome.
Yep.
Thanks, man.
Matt Booth from Room 101, thank you so much for spending a couple of minutes on Smoking and Toasting with us. We appreciate it. Please continue to do what you're doing because you're making great stuff.
Thank you.
And shake Ian's hand.
Oh.
Don't want to leave a brother hanging. It's Smoking and Toasting live at the Houston Whiskey Social. All right. Well, thank you to Matt Booth. That a very interesting interview, and I think you got a kick out of sitting next to him, didn't you?
I think he had a lot of fun with that as well.
I think he did. That's very cool. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be trying Odell Brewing's The Tree Shaker. It's an Imperial. Actually, it's just called Tree Shaker, but I like to put the in front of it, as you know. The Tree Shaker Imperial Peach IPA plus. Pairing craft beer with Easter peeps is going to happen. We'll tell you how to do it coming up next. It's Smoking and Toasting. Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. The program that's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. And we are brought to you by B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston and in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth. Also by B&B Lemon right across the street from the Houston location. Ian, you had set aside from earlier in the show the Apple Kolsch, the BrewGK from Eighth Wonder in Houston. You wanted to let it warm up and see what you got. What do you think?
It's actually still drinkable. On
See,
some
I think
later
Kolsch
beers,
is something you want really cold.
Yeah, generally speaking, it's still drinkable. It gets a little more astringent and a touch more bitter, but you definitely pick up more of the apple in there too.
Interesting.
It's not a lot. It's still not a ton of apple, but I would say this stands up even warm.
Interesting.
Oddly enough, yeah.
Yeah, for a Kolsch, it surprises me. I actually thought you weren't going to like it at all if it warmed up.
No, it's still got nice flavor to it, and sometimes when beers warm up, and macro brewers are famous for this. Like when they warm up, they just get this bitter harshness to it that just is terrible and like undrinkable.
It may be that's when the weed killer really
when you really get the weed killer flavor. Right.
Yeah, I realize it's not on the ingredient label.
Or whatever they use to cold activate the can.
Yeah, right. There's got to be something that makes those cans turn color. Think about it. It's inside your can, working against your taste buds right now.
But but this one stands up, and I truly believe if a beer has good flavor to begin with, it's not that you should prefer it warm necessarily, but it should at least stand up and have good flavor still evident when it's like that. If you have to have it ice cold to mask the flavors, I think you have an inferior product.
Right.
So this is one of the reasons I always, like on beers like this especially, I try them a little warm just to see what the flavors do. It's interesting to me.
Yeah, agreed. I'm just a cold beer guy. That's why I like beer better.
Don't get me wrong. I drink most of it cold, and I'll settle aside a little bit to try it later.
Yeah, no, but I like your idea, and it's interesting that holds up actually warm for a Kolsch. That's pretty impressive. Well, we are bound. We are Easter bound. Easter is this coming weekend. Good Friday is tomorrow. And Easter, by the way, is the second biggest candy holiday, behind, of course, Halloween, which is the biggest candy holiday. But Easter, with its baskets of eggs and lots of candy involved in that, there's always lots of Easter candy for sale at the store. And then right after Easter, lots of half-price Easter candy available to buy. So I don't know if you are a candy person. I'm not hugely a candy person. I'm more of a chips and hot sauce person than a candy person. I appreciate something sweet every once in a while. And if you are looking at lots of Easter candy in your pantry and are wondering what to pair it with, including those peeps, here you go. We're gonna run this down for you, okay? I don't know why you'd want to pair peeps with your favorite craft beer, but if you do, here's what to do. Jay Brooks is a celebrated beer author. He explored recently the rights and wrongs of matching craft beer to candy. He started simple with an old-fashioned classic of Americana junk food, the chocolate bunny. This historic candy, he says, is the easiest to pair with beer. He says, eat your chocolate bunnies while drinking a raspberry lambic. Raspberry and chocolate are a match made in heaven. So,
I can see that happening.
That makes sense.
Framboise.
Yep, absolutely. If you're eating cream eggs, he suggests drinking a light-bodied beer, like a Weiss beer or a wit beer or an American wheat beer or maybe a Helles. He says, on the other hand, a cream stout or milk stout might work nicely, too, because of the milkshake notes that they have.
Those Cadbury cream eggs,
yeah,
they are absolutely delicious.
Yeah.
but they will destroy your palate to the point where you can't taste any sweet in anything for like a while.
Well, maybe they'd be good then with like
they will make a
milk stout.
Mountain Dew taste like Perrier. Like, it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I get it. He writes that jelly beans are the toughest to pair because they come in so many different
There's too many flavors, right?
Yeah, he says, they're good for experimentation, but can lead to, a lot of disastrous combinations. So, jelly beans, you may just want to like leave that out altogether. Finally, Peeps. He says pair Peeps with bourbon barrel-aged beers. Yeah, it's easy to find, very boozy bourbon barrel-aged. Think about that. A beer like the last one we're going to try today, which is the Firestone Walker 2019 Sucaba Vintage. We're going to try that. Imagine that with Peeps.
Did you bring Peeps?
I did not.
Okay.
I did not. It's a good thing.
Yeah, well, yeah. So Peeps to me, like, who actually does anybody out there actually eat Peeps?
I know people who do. Yes.
Like, I always thought Peeps were a lot like candy corn.
See, I like candy corn.
Oh,
See,
I don't weird.
I don't like Peeps, but I
have this uncle. He's such a wonderful guy, right? My uncle would always tell us when we were little kids, he'd come over like, I'm gonna bring you $100 worth of candy. We used to, crack up. That was just his thing. And then he'd bring us these circus peanuts. Remember those big, puffy, awful, terrible things?
Yes, those are like one of the worst candies ever. Those
we never held that against them.
Those are in
but
line
circus
with
peanuts are not good.
Yeah, no, they're just not delicious.
I know. Also, my aunt's gonna watch this and she's gonna laugh. But yeah, so Peeps though, like why? That's so terrible.
Well, maybe like my.
Do
friend
you
Gwen.
still like when you eat the candy corns? Do you still break the tip off and go, I broke my tooth? And
no, I haven't done that in quite some time. But thanks for the reminder. Maybe this Halloween I will.
This is such an incredibly authentic sound.
Yeah, I know. It sounded just like someone opening a can of beer.
That's amazing how you do that.
Amazing how it can be created like that. We have this very high-tech sound effects creation program here on the show. I am pouring, and I'll give this to Ian to display in the beer cam momentarily, but I am pouring Odell's Seasonal, which is their tree shaker. It's an Imperial IPA, so it's going to have a fairly high ABV. Says it's brewed with local peaches, because who would want peaches from another neighborhood over? It's an Imperial IPA.
Especially if you're going to the country.
That has roots. I got it. I totally got it.
And you're going to eat a lot of peaches. I couldn't stop myself from finishing that. I'm sorry.
The best line in that song is, peaches come from a can. They were put there by a man. That's the best line in that story. It says here that this Imperial IPA has its roots in Colorado. Familiar citrusy hop notes balanced with sweet local peaches give the style a playful little shake. I love Odell Brewing out of Fort Collins, Colorado. I think they are
their 90 shilling is such
wonderfully adventurous. Yes,
great Scotch ale.
I mentioned earlier the Wolfpicker IPA. Yeah. It's one of my absolute favorites. I'm actually looking for an ABV 8.0, 8% alcohol by volume, and I'll let you go ahead and show that.
I will tell you
to the camera.
Let me turn on the machine here.
Okay, very nicely done. Yeah.
All right. So
your thoughts?
I will tell you, it tastes a little bit boozy.
Yeah, it kind of does. Well, at 8.0.
And it's in a good way. Like, I like, obviously I like barley wines and big stouts and porters. I obviously like boozy beers.
I'm trying to impress you.
This is good. The flavor profile on this is really nice. It goes down nice and smooth. It's not harsh. It's not bitter. It does leave a nice bitter aftertaste, but in a nice way. But almost more like an ESB.
Sort of a hop bitter, like an ESB, yes.
Yeah, more like an ESB does, not like an overly hopped IPA does.
It is very boozy for an IPA.
It is very boozy for an IPA.
Yeah.
And it's also a little malt forward for an IPA on the first, on the initial palate.
The peach is not overwhelming, but it is definitely there.
No, the peach is something that, in this particular beer, that you go, what is that? And when someone says peaches, you go, ah.
Yes, very well said.
Right, that's
very well said.
It's it's well done like that. And once you taste it and you know what you're tasting, it's very obvious. But before that, it's not a big sweet, peach flavor. It's almost like right next to the pit kind of peach flavor. It's got some of that sweetness. But
So let me ask you a marketing question.
okay, I was young. I needed the money.
Good to know. Close your eyes for a moment, and now imagine that I had poured this in your cup there out of a bomber, and that I told you it was $17.99 at my downtown Specs. Now take a drink of it and tell me, would that, as opposed to it coming out of a can that you can buy in a 6-pack, would that change your feeling about it in any way, your expectations for it? I'm wondering, does marketing work?
So honestly, I don't think I'd be unhappy with this if you were sharing it like that, and that's the way it came. I would say this is a really nice offering. I think if they're making a beer this good that they're putting in a can and just tossing out there, says something about the company. I mean,
you're right, because this is a more quote-unquote normal release, even though I know it's a limited time release.
Right.
But this isn't something where they're going, hey, this is among the most, wildly crafted things we're doing.
And
right?
I think, though, here's one of the marketing issues with that, because a lot of people go for a lot of those special edition releases and those kind of things. I wonder if the people that go for those kind of special editions and pay the $19 to $26 for a bomber would pass this over, because it does look a little passé because it's in their standard marketing package.
Yeah, right. It looks very much like their normal line of beers.
And the only way to know that this isn't one of their normal beers is when you turn the beer around, it says limited. Right there it is.
Yeah, but it's not like a huge banner flying around the top of the can or anything. It's
right. There's nothing about this that says limited release except for that little tiny thing. So the question is this: does it work in the opposite way? Because frankly, if you can get something this good just out of a can, I mean, like, to me, something that's available most of the time like this that is this kind of good, I go for that.
If this were something they were putting out, it says limited, not seasonal.
Right.
But if I knew this was coming out next year, in the spring, I'd be like, ooh, is that Odell out? Yeah, this is something I'd be waiting for.
Right, right.
Sort of like you and I are about, the Oktoberfest from St. Arnold.
Springbok,
and the Springbok, which I had one of this week and is awesome.
I'm trying to snap up the last few 6-packs of that I can find out there. So if you see one, I'm just saying my birthday's at the end of the month.
Gotcha.
Matter of fact, it's in about a week.
Yeah, we're going out we're doing a little dinner for your birthday.
Just saying.
Coming up. Yeah, it'll be fun. All right, well, I'm going to recommend this pretty highly. In fact, and here's what I don't remember. I don't remember if it comes in 4-packs or 6-packs, but either way, I'm going to tell you, if you're... This is not a juicy IPA, by the way.
No.
It's not. That's not the style of it at all. It's definitely an Imperial, got the booziness to it, and just that hint of peach. Like Ian said, if you're going, what is that flavor? And somebody said peach, you'd be like, right. Yeah. That's the degree to which it's peachy, but it's just delicious.
But it starts also as a little more malt forward IPA, which is a little more unusual now day and age.
And I'm guessing you're going to want to set a little bit of this aside and drink it slightly more.
I am.
I had a feeling,
because I'll probably enjoy this as much or better.
I kind of know how you. Operate. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to taste some rum. As a matter of fact, this is not the world's most creative rum name, but it's called Dos Ron, and I have a feeling it's because there's 2 guys named Ron that are responsible for this brand and for doing the distilling. And
did you translate that yourself?
I did. Dos Ron.
That's
I
amazing.
worked really, really hard on it. Actually, Ron means rum, right? But I'll show you on the label. There's 2 guys in the silhouette, right? So I'm thinking, okay, they're both Ron. This is my investigative reporting.
If not, they are now.
They are now. Both of them are named Ron. This is the Solera 16 años. It's aged for 16 years, and I'm really excited about your being able to try this. I'll tell you why. Coming up, also, the celebs have been busy. Sammy Hagar has a new tequila. Remember, he was responsible for Cabo Wabo.
Cabo Wabo,
yeah. Which, by the way, I don't know whether they've changed the formula on it. I have not had it in a long time, but for many years that Cabo Wabo Reposado was a go-to for me as a tequila guy. So he has a new one. He sold Cabo Wabo a long time ago.
The Red Rocker.
Yeah, and Bob Dylan, by the way, has a whiskey which came out last year. We reviewed one of the iterations here on the show, and he is now building this distillery, which will be a sort of a tourist attraction, a thing for people to come and visit, and it's going to have a performance space and live music.
Hey, if anybody out there knows Bob Dylan, tell him to send us whiskey to try.
Yeah, that's right. We've only been able to try one of the iterations so far. So, all right, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. It is Smoking and Toast, and thank you for hanging out with us. Yeah, really. See? Well, welcome back to Smoking and Toast. It is so nice to have you guys on with us as we do show number 135. Our conversation with Matt Booth from Room 101 Cigars. We're brought to you by B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Avenue in Houston, in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth. By the way, just wanted to mention before you pop the top on this, that little bumper music we used there was from the Suffers, a very, very good band based in Houston, Texas, that we've been to see. All of us have been to see several times. Really love these guys. They're awesome. They were playing a show in Dallas earlier this week. Someone broke into their trailer, stole all their equipment. It's one of those things you hear about it happening to touring bands every once in a while. And I'm just so bummed for those guys. So go to their website. I believe it's thesuffers.com or .net. And I'm sure there'll be something there if you want to be able to get involved and donate a few bucks towards helping them restock their equipment, because they're still a young band. I mean, they've been doing this for a while, but they're not like superstars on the level where they can just go, have the boys bring around some more instruments. Yeah, it's not going to be like that. Yeah. So anyway, that's a bummer, but we want to encourage you to support them because they're awesome. So, all right, Ian is about to pop the top on Dos Ron. Ooh, I like that. Ooh, we got a good one out of that.
That was awesome.
I like.
Do you like the scrunchy sounds right before it came out?
The scrunchy is great. So Dos Ron, this is a rum that I will admit that I picked up because I was looking for one that we hadn't tried, and it was one of a handful that we hadn't tried. That does tend to
narrow the
yes, no, it does because
the selection.
We've tried a number of, and there's not as many rums on my store shelf as there are, let's say, whiskeys. There's
I thought you were going to say there's not as many rums on your store shelf as there are at your bar at home.
That could also be true. Although, so here's the thing. So I bought this bottle of Dos Ron, and I took it home, bought it with the intention, of course, of bringing it onto the show. And it's Dos Ron. Carlos Morfa is the one who's quoted here. He says, "I dedicate this rum to my father and to your excellent taste." It is 16 years, aged 16 years, handcrafted in the Dominican Republic. And if you wouldn't mind, Ian, maybe showing that to the beer cam, which is now
we're not going to put it on the beer can. We're go ahead. We're going to transform it
into a rum cam. Yes, but I want if you back it up so people can see the illustration.
We're going to
yeah. Oh, that's good. Perfect. So you back it up just a touch, and people can see there you go. Can see the illustration. There are clearly silhouettes of two guys in that circle, right? So I'm assuming those guys are both named Ron, and that's why the rum is called Dos Ron. But Ron, I believe, is actually means rum in Spanish. So I don't know if it means two rums. I don't know. Maybe someone can help me out with this. I didn't find a lot of information about Dos Ron. However, I bought this bottle. I bet about a month ago, and I brought it home, and it just turned out we had a lot of guests lined up on the show who were bringing, whiskey, or we were live at B&B Lemon doing cocktails. So we didn't have need for me to bring anything from the home bar onto the show for a while, and sometimes I get impatient and want to try something. So I opened this bottle up. My wife and I tried something. This became my wife's new favorite rum, and she not only enjoyed some of it herself, but anybody that came over, she was like, "Oh, you got to try this rum." I had to go back and buy another bottle to bring on the show. So
if you are not a fan of a buttery vanilla and slightly astringent fresh cane sugar flavor, then you'll absolutely hate this rum.
Well, what if you do like those things?
If you like this, if you like those things, it is incredibly buttery vanilla.
It really is.
It is so
very flavor forward,
smooth. And you know how when you have something with a big pat of butter on it, just kind of coats the tongue, and that buttery flavor lingers there. This
like if you had a
that.
really buttery like biscuit or piece of bread that just really had that.
Yeah, this leaves your tongue with that butteriness and a little sweet. And if you've ever had fresh sugar cane, like if you ever chewed on a piece of sugar cane, there's a little astringency to it.
It's got
it's a little woodiness to it that this also has, and it's very good. And what's funny is a 16-year-old and that cane sugar tastes super fresh in here.
Yeah, it really does. And I wanted to point out that the heat is almost like 3, 4, 5 seconds after
way
you swallow.
Back there, right?
Way back. Yeah, it's not just like heat on the finish. It's like the finish. You go, wow, that was good, and then here comes a little bit of heat.
You get a whole secondary idea to
let you
think
know.
About.
Yeah, to let you know that you just had a rum.
It's got a lot of oiliness to the mouthfeel, which I like as well, because that just helps spread that flavor around a whole bunch. This is fun. It's got fun flavors. It's a mellow flavor, but it's not dark flavors. The flavors in this are a little brighter than you'd expect.
Yes,
overall.
I agree. A lot of times with rum, you're thinking about those darker, more more barrel aged type flavors.
I think rum. I think there's a lot of brown sugar flavors in here, which this doesn't have as much as that brown sugar that you expect.
Agreed.
This
It's more
has
like the pure sugar cane.
That vanilla and that sugar cane are so like, and they're so stark. Sometimes it's harder to divide the two flavors because they're blending so well. These are actually very separate.
Yes,
and stark.
agreed.
And
Agreed.
I bet this with a little bit of ice, like once it gets cold and a little bit of water in it, just becomes absolutely amazing.
This is the most aged expression of the Dos Run I've seen. I think they have one that is an 8-year or 10-year as well. Have not tried that, but this is
so. The other interesting thing is I didn't get this on the front of the palate. It actually took me this many sips to figure this out. You know how a lot of spiced rums, like if you've ever had Goslings or a lot of those that are very like.
This is
very
not a spiced
rums.
Yeah, this is not a spiced
when you
rum,
open
though.
it, you have that spicy rum flavor right there in your face. This gives you a little bit of that back on the very end of it and it took a few sips and it took a little bit of build up with the aftertaste and the heat coming back to where on the retro hail I get a little bit of that kind of traditional spiced rum flavor. Now this is not a spiced rum, but there's a little bit of that happening kind of in the retro hail.
I hear you.
That's really interesting as well.
I'm also, after several sips, picking up a little bit of banana.
Yeah. And molasses are coming up a little bit, but not as heavy as you'd expect.
Well, this has gone into rotation at the home bar. I can tell you this.
I can definitely see that happening. This is quite the enjoyment.
Yes, very, very nice.
And a little bit easy, almost too easy to drink.
Almost too easy to drink. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. I knew immediately when I tasted it that my wife would like it. It tastes a bit like she loves the plantation pineapple. This reminds me a bit of that, but without the pineapple infusion.
Right.
You know, almost more so than the regular plantation.
Also, as smooth as this is, I can see why you put it in front of our last beer, which is a barley wine. I was wondering about that, and I was going to mention it at the end of the last segment when you said, we're going to try the rum next. I was like, okay.
The barley wine, and I've not tried it, but it could obscure all things that went before it.
Well,
it's entirely possible.
The Firestone Walker, their barley wines are legendary. They're so good.
Yeah, and even though they're primarily known for their IPAs, for luponic distortion and some of the other things, and also very, very well known for that. What is it?
805.
805.
So good.
Love that. Talk about
So
lighter
good.
beers
Yeah.
coming to the fore.
Yeah, absolutely.
That beer is all the rage in California.
Yep.
All the rage. So Sammy Hagar has released details of his new tequila, which he created in partnership with TV chef Guy Fieri. And it's going to be launched next month, and it is called Santo Frito Blanco. Now, Guy Fieri is one of those guys, and I know you don't watch so much TV, but Guy Fieri is one of those guys, people either love him or hate him. Like, he's that guy. He's a little loud,
It's
little
funny you say that
boisterous.
because I think he's okay.
Yeah, I kind of like him myself, but some people just think he's like totally not a chef.
I've eaten at
and
actually a
all
few of his restaurants.
And?
Outstanding.
Well, there you go. I like flavor, and he's big into flavor.
The braised
so
rib.
that does it for me. Yeah.
Oh, man.
That does it for me. Well, he's hooked up with Sammy Hagar. Guy, Sammy says, has always been a tequila lover, and so he approached Sammy about creating a tequila together. It was perfect timing, and they have made what they call an old world style tequila with 100% blue Weber agave. There are a few things I know: great food, killer drinks, and wild times, Guy Fieri said. And Sammy and I are making it happen with Los Santo. So looking forward to, by the way, Sammy's longtime distiller collaborator, Juan Eduardo Nunez, who selected the agave plants in the Jalisco Highlands of Mexico that go into this. He's the guy that helped him do Cabo Wabo, and he's the guy that helped him do the rum that Sammy has out now as well. So it seems like maybe they're in good hands. I know some people are really, not into the whole celebrity thing.
Spirits.
But Sammy was doing that with tequila way before every celebrity.
Sammy was way ahead of the
before
mark
every
on
celebrity
that.
had a thing. So
Yep.
so we're going to at least give him the benefit of the doubt. Now, Bob Dylan, I was surprised that Bob Dylan was doing a whiskey, to be honest with you. I really was. I'm one of those people, the way I am about Dylan is I'm not necessarily a fan, but I acknowledge his genius. That's kind of like, and when I say I'm not necessarily a fan, what I mean by that is I don't generally go home and put his records on.
I love Dylan on a song-by-song basis.
Yes, that's
and
a good
a
way
lot
of
of
saying it.
times someone else singing his songs.
Well, his Nashville whiskey distillery will open next year, along with an on-site performance venue. Heaven's Door Spirits LLC is the name of his signature line of whiskeys. They're out already. We've tried one of them on the show. I did get a kick out of the name. I thought Heaven's Door was pretty funny. But they're thrilled to announce the celebration of the opening for next year. And it's going to be a destination point if you're headed to Nashville.
Nice.
So I am really curious actually to try, and it's funny because this is how I am. Like, I'm really curious about trying some of the others, like trying the bourbon or trying a couple of the other iterations. But sometimes when I'm standing there in the aisle, like if I'm going to buy a whiskey, it's just really hard for me to to buy another Bob Dylan whiskey,
Right.
Instead of trying maybe something else that I haven't tried. So as of yet, I haven't gone and bought another one to bring in and drink on the show. Maybe you're right. Maybe if anybody knows Bob, they should tell him to.
Yeah, they should send us stuff because the problem is like we don't get to try everything. We have to go buy it.
Right.
And that's not cheap.
But hey, smoking and toasting directly influencing sales.
Absolutely true.
That's the way we like to do it.
Absolutely true.
We are going to take another quick break. When we come back with this barley wine we've been teasing, it is a Firestone Walker 2019 Sucaba Vintage, the barley wine ale from Pasa, Robles, California. That's coming up, plus 15 fascinating facts about Cuban Cohiba cigars. I think
15 fascinating facts
15
featuring
fascinating
Cohiba?
facts, yes. If you can say it really fast, I'll get you a Cohiba.
15 fascinating facts featuring Cohiba?
That wasn't fast enough.
Ah,
we'll be right back. It's Smoking and Toasting. Isn't that a lovely red?
Agreed.
On the beach in Hawaii.
Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. We are so thrilled to have you on board with us for show number 135. Thanks to Matt Booth for being our guest on the program today via the Houston Whiskey Social, which we had several weeks ago, which we were able to sit down and talk with Matt, and that was awesome. We want to also mention special thanks to our guest from last week, Jared Himstedt from Balcones Whiskey. Jared was a great guest on the show, and he sure brought some great whiskey. Oh, my gosh. Woo-hoo, baby.
All you guys that are regular tuning in, by the way, Brian and Zachary and my wife and everybody else, man, thank you guys for tuning in. Please share this out as far as you can.
We appreciate it. We're brought to you by B&B Butchers and Restaurant, 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and in the shops at Clear Fork and Fort Worth. We do hope to be there for next week's show. That is the current plan, and I apologize that I didn't kill my phone, so I just killed it now.
It's very important that you get that last call for your new your car warranty.
Oh, yes, that's right. My car warranty is about to expire.
Either that or you have been selected by Hilton Suites.
Well, listen.
That's the other one I keep
Let me
getting.
just tell you, Ann from Account Services, she calls me regularly.
Oh, nice. She likes you.
Yeah, she likes me. Cohiba, in a few decades, went from being a private label brand for Fidel Castro to becoming the most recognizable sought-after cigar in the world, up there with Dom Perignon Champagne and Patek Philippe watches. Cohiba is now synonymous with luxury goods, and for the most part, according to the article, and I'm quoting in Cigar Aficionado, it lives up to the hype for the most part. Cuban Cohibas tend to score very well in their blind ratings, and the Cohiba Villiger BHK 52 was even named the Cigar of the Year in 2010. So here are 15 facts about Cohiba. I knew some of these. Others didn't seem like that big a deal to me. Several I was like, whoa. So I thought I'd share this. The first is that Cohiba actually means tobacco. It's easy to say, rhythmic almost, and it is the word for tobacco in Teño, the native language of Cuba's indigenous people before the Spanish conquest. So I did not know that. So it actually means tobacco. So it makes a lot of sense. It's actually fairly new. As far as Cuban cigar brands go, Cohiba's pretty young. A lot of the Cuban brands you see today were privately owned before the revolution and then subsequently nationalized, but not Cohiba. It was created in 1966 after the revolution, especially for Fidel Castro. So Cohiba itself has nothing to do with old Havana, but it is quite symbolic of Castro's Cuba and an icon of the revolution itself. Cohiba actually happened by accident. This is fact number 3. The way the story goes, these were cigars made for Fidel Castro's chief bodyguard, and on a whim, Castro fell in love with the smoke and ordered more of them, making it his personal cigar of choice. The next thing is that for many years, you couldn't buy Cohiba. The only way you could get one is if Fidel Castro himself gave you one. The cigars were selectively doled out as diplomatic gifts to dignitaries, heads of state, or anybody that Castro thought worthy of such a splendid smoke. At that time, the mysterious cigar came only in one thin size, the Lancero, the 38 ring gauge, 7.5 inches long cigar. Isn't that fascinating? Our buddy at Stogie's, Jorge, would love that.
Yep,
He's a fan of the Lancero. Eventually, though, you could buy one. Cohibas didn't become commercially available until 1982, and even then you could only buy them in Spain. They came out in 3 commercial sizes. Then they came out in 4 lines. The core line, the Siglo series, the Maduro line, called Maduro 5, and the Villiger series, the BHKs. The Siglo series was created to fill a gap. In case you didn't know, by the way, Davidoff started out as a short-lived Cuban brand. What does this have to do with Cohiba? Once Davidoff's production was moved to the Dominican Republic, Cuba had a gap to fill, so the cigar industry came out with the Cohiba Siglo series in 1992.
And I like the Siglos.
Yeah, the Siglos are great. Officially called a Linea 1492, the Siglo series of cigars match some of the sizes previously found in the Davidoff line. So the Siglo 1, for example, is the same size as the former Davidoff Chateau Haut-Brion. The Siglo 2 and the Siglo 3 and others mirror other Davidoff sizes.
They weren't as imaginative on the naming.
That's
of
right.
Sizes.
Cohiba's mother factory is in El Leguto, which is the big yellow mansion in Havana's Leafly Miramar section. The plantations are secret. Very few tobacco plantations in Cuba produce tobacco that is distinct enough to be used for the Cohiba brand, and Habanos Tobacco does not say which farms actually make the grade. So it is an actual secret which farms the Cohiba tobacco comes from. Isn't that interesting? I thought that was interesting.
That is pretty wild.
Another fact, you probably smoked a fake. Rembrandts are faked, Stradivarius violins are faked, Louis Vuitton handbags are faked, Cohibas are faked. Yeah, because they became such a sought-after luxury product, they are more counterfeited than any other cigar brand in the world. Cohiba.
So the question is, how do you know if you smoked a fake?
Well, I think you can probably...
I think we have an old episode on how to spot a fake.
I think we do, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
That's good. And by the way, one way you know that you probably didn't smoke a fake, if it knocked your socks off.
Yeah.
That's probably good. The Cohiba name is still in litigation. It's the lawsuit that just won't die. See, General Cigar started selling Dominican Cubas in the U.S. back in the 1980s, and since then there have been lawsuits, counter-lawsuits, appeals, numerous hearings, contradictory rulings back and forth, and litigation that's gone on for decades. Now, when you see the Cohiba, that's the red dot Cohiba.
Right.
That is not the Cuban Cohiba,
Right.
of course. That's the Dominican, or I think now they have a Nicaraguan blend as well. But,
Which is also a great cigar.
Actually, it is.
Yeah.
A very good cigar.
The only thing I don't like about them is they're expensive.
And by the way, so are Cuban Cohibas. The band design has evolved drastically. It's gone from the simple dots and lettering to today's technologically advanced anti-counterfeit holograms, as they try to be a little more proactive about stopping the whole counterfeiting thing. The Cohiba is the only commercialized Cuban cigar with a 60 ring gauge. When it turned 50 years old in 2016, it was commemorated with a special humidor that sells for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And within that humidor are 50 Cohiba 50 Aniversario cigars, 7 inches long with a 60 ring gauge.
Ooh, that's a beast of a cigar.
Cohiba came close in 2014 with the limited edition Robusto Supremo, which was a 58. But so far, the 50 Aniversario is the only commercialized Cuban to reach a full 60 ring. Finally, 2 more. It is Cuba's most expensive brand. Cohibas are by far the most expensive regular production cigars sold around the world. In the UK, a Cohiba Robusto retails for about £34.30, or that's about $45 US. In Canada, that cigar would be around $70 Canadian, which is about $52 US. So that's an expensive cigar.
That is.
Bahiques are even more, some prices surpassing $100 per cigar American in some markets when and if you can find them. Finally, there are no cheap Cuban Cohibas. Discount Cohibas do not exist. Demand far outstrips supply, and the wholesale costs of Cohiba are just too high for anybody to offer them at a lower cost. If they're cheaper than usual, they are probably not real. Stop looking for a bargain. It's an exercise in self-delusion, and you'll only get burned and feel foolish in retrospect. Rather than wasting your energy by trying to save a buck, they suggest to try finding a reputable dealer instead. They suggest the La Casa del Habano franchise shop. So there's your 15 facts about Cohiba.
Yep, my only complaint is the price.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's really hard. It's really hard to, to justify. I think the price of those when you consider, even as good as they are, how many great Nicaraguan cigars or Ecuadorian cigars or how many could you buy for that same price, and how much smoking
I will tell you
enjoyment
this:
could you
one of
get?
the best cigars I've had is a Padron 45th anniversary. Outstanding cigar, $30 for a cigar ish, worth every penny. Amazing, like that thing is amazing. Now I've smoked 2 in my life,
Right. Again,
because they're $30 a cigar.
So Ian, let's break into this final
if
beer.
we can,
here.
if we can go over to the formerly known as the liquor cam, we'll go over to the beer cam.
It's now a beer cam once
Right,
again. Thank
and
you
it
very
is
much.
actually in the process of rotating on its incredibly evenly rotating platform, which doesn't look like my fingers turning it from the top out of camera at all. Yes.
Okay.
So,
Wow.
all right. Ooh, you didn't give me cups. I
didn't.
just have to drink it out of the bottle.
I think I need. I'm falling way behind here. Here we go. Let's try this.
These are not red Solo cups.
No, they're not. Now, while you're doing that, let me read from the back of the box. Our brewery began, this is Firestone Walker Brewery, in 1996 when we delved into the rare art of fermenting beer in oak barrels. So it's interesting because I think of Firestone Walker as being very IPA driven, but their brewery began when they started fermenting beer in oak barrels. So the IPA wasn't the first pass of what they were doing. Fascinating. So in vessels inherited from bourbon houses and other spirits producers, ever since, the resulting beers have flown under the banner of the Proprietor's Vintage Series, which has become one of the most extensive barrel aging programs in the craft industry. As always, the 2019 vintage of Sucaba delivers big, boozy bourbons and American oak aromas combined with soft chocolate malt undertones. Complex malt flavors are framed in oak with hints of dark chocolate, vanilla, toasted coconut, and a touch of dark cherry.
You can smell this across the room.
All right. They say it's a beer built to last and one that will reward careful cellaring for years to come. We highly recommend counting the years with an abacus. Cellar in a cool, dark place between 45 and 55 degrees. Now, obviously, I didn't cellar this at all. I bought it this week.
Right.
And we're trying it right now.
Which is probably still going to be, I haven't tried it yet, but it's probably still going to be outstanding because I've had a few of their Sucaba expressions.
I said abacus. That's what threw you off.
Abacus. Abacab, right? That's a Genesis song.
And you know where the title came from, by the way, for that song?
No.
It's about the note progression. A, B, C, B, A, C. Or abacab. I probably didn't do that right because I can't.
A, B, A,
I had a brain fart. But abacab, yeah. But it's about the note progression, yeah. Okay, Ian, talk to me about one of the most interesting and complex barley wines I've ever tasted.
Well, I haven't tried it yet.
Oh my goodness! I actually tried this before
savoring this
moment.
Oh
my goodness!
I've had the Sucaba quite a few times. I've had many expressions. As a matter of fact, I had a 2016 that stayed in my refrigerator until early or late last year when me and a friend of mine kind of went half and half on it, and I told him I'd save it for him. I find it interesting that you said you didn't keep this one as cold as the other ones. It actually says serve at 55 degrees, which is substantially warmer than you would expect a lot of beers to be served at. That's in the neighborhood of like what they suggest Guinness to be served at.
It even says here cellar in a cool, dark place between 45 and 55.
Right.
So they're even recommending that for cellaring. So
this is awesome.
It really is good. I mean, if this were the first barley wine I ever tasted, it would ruin all other barley wines.
This is what I love about barley wine here. This barley wines are so big, and this actually is a little less. The
mouthfeel is not quite as thick as some others that we've had.
Right, a little less viscous than I would expect overall in the mouthfeel. The carbonation is perfect, though. It's the right amount of little bubbles just to give it a little interest on the tongue. It dances a little bit, and then it's gone. There's a ton of mashed date flavor going on in this.
What I would say about this, and again, you're much more of an expert in this style of beer than I am, but what I like about this better than almost any barley wine I've had, certainly better than any that I can think of at this moment, is the balance of the flavors. There's a lot of barley wines that I've tried. The flavors are great, but let's say the dried fruit flavors will be dominant.
And by dried fruit in here, you mean dark cherry.
Dark, yes, absolutely, yeah. But those flavors might be really dominant. Or you might get a chocolate flavor that's really dominant. Or you might get a, I don't know, some of the other sort of chunkiness that will come through with these flavors are so well balanced that none of them leapfrogs the other. You find your palate just kind of taking them all in like at almost the same level, like a really well-blended cigar.
Yes, imagine this though, the very tail end of the palate on this. It tastes like an incredible graham cracker crust that's been burnt just a slight amount.
Just a slight amount, the way you like it.
Yeah, yes. I mean, this is raisin and date and malt right up front. This is that dark cherry bitterness following up, and a little bit of that burnt graham cracker going on. I mean, and the whole thing is layered with a coat of that like powdered chocolate.
Now, admittedly,
Like, it's
Ian,
so good.
Admittedly, I have not tried. I think nearly as much as you have in this particular area, barley wines. But I'm going to tell you, hands down, this is my favorite that I've ever had.
And this is not an American style barley wine. This is definitely an English style barley wine.
Yeah, it's just absolutely delicious.
Yes.
I mean, I feel like they nailed it with this one. And I can't even imagine, because barley wines are one of the few styles of beer that do improve potentially with age.
Yes, with age.
So it would be really interesting to see what this would be like down the road a little ways.
You bought like 5 bottles for that, right?
Oh, no, I bought the one. I've got to go back like on the way home now. But it's really, really good.
Yes, this is outstanding.
It's really, really good.
Interestingly enough, though, every time I've had it before, it's been in a bomber, and you brought this 12-ounce bottle out.
Well, and interesting, I don't know
and
if
it's
we
in
know,
the same packaging that the bomber was
Yeah,
in,
I don't
except
know
for
if-
smaller.
I don't know if we showed that to the camera or not.
Hold on,
but
let me put it into the beer box cam.
I
here.
was actually walking down the look of the aisleway at Specs where they had the big bombers and saw this at the end of the aisle, all by itself.
Uh-oh.
I think you messed up the camera there, Ian.
Did I kill something? There we go.
Oh, there we're back. Okay. Yeah, there you go. I love the fighting bear too.
Yeah. the
Fighting bear is
the best.
awesome. Fighting with the lion. That's Firestone.
Well, and then there's
logo.
both of them right there together. Yeah, so this package, I've never seen it in a 12-ounce size. I've always seen it in a bomber size, which is substantially
Well,
taller.
I find myself wishing I had bought a bomber today.
Man, that is
because
so
we would be
good.
drinking the rest of it for sure. Well, Ian, I got to tell you, I'll go on record. That's my favorite barley wine I've ever had.
Toasted coconut, I can go with that. That's,
Yes, you definitely pull that out.
I didn't pick that up. The oak, what does it say? Oh, Kenzie, you read this earlier. I wasn't paying attention to you at all.
As is normal.
Like, I know you're talking. I don't have to listen. Right? Oak, hints of dark chocolate, vanilla, toasted coconut, and touch of dark cherry. That dark cherry to me is so good.
It's fantastic.
Like, in there.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I didn't pick up on the coconut until it
But
was
boy, I can
mentioned.
sure
that the
tell now
dark
that you
chocolate,
mentioned
the
it. It's like,
vanilla.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's very impressive, and I just can't recommend it highly enough. And again, this is kind of like when you rave about an IPA.
Yeah.
Me raving about a barley wine is the same. Like, I enjoy it, I appreciate it, but it's not something I always seek out, and I will seek this
So
out.
good.
And I will buy more, and I will enjoy it very, very much.
If you need a refrigerator, store it in.
Do you need a place? Do you have a place in mind?
I have one.
I have a feeling you're going to be good.
You know,
looking.
before I got married, I had a friend of mine. Did I tell this story before? I went over to his house and he showed me he got one of those little mini fridges and it was completely full of beer, and he was very happy. And I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." And he goes, "You don't look very excited about that." I was like, "Well, I'm a bachelor. My beer fridge is this big." It's just I just call it a fridge. You know?
That's right. I know. It is amazing, actually, how you have to begin to ration space for beer in the refrigerator once you get married.
Well, once I got married, I rationed space for beer in my refrigerator by buying a second refrigerator.
See, you're a smart man. That's totally the way to do it.
It's known as the beer refrigerator.
And see, I just want to. This will be my last tip for you guys, because I believe in trying to do things to help people move forward in society as best as possible. If you only have one refrigerator, but you have a place for a second one, Craigslist.
Oh yeah,
You'll be able to buy a used refrigerator for pennies on the dollar. It will work great, and it will house your beer, and everyone in your family will be happy. This seems like a good sort of a Zen-like place to end the show, don't you think?
it does.
It really does. Everyone in your family is happy, and you have a refrigerator stocked full of beer. Make sure to find a good place to cellar some of this, though, that's 45 to 55 degrees. Your beer fridge might be a little cold.
That's
for
your
that.
third bear fridge.
Yes, that's right. There you go. That's the way to do it. And you can buy one of the little ones for that and keep it, just, or depending on how much you want to sell them. Want to thank Matt Booth from Room 101 Cigars for being on the show today, for spending time with us at the Houston Whiskey Social and putting that segment together. He was a lot of fun to hang out with, and I'm excited to see what they have coming out later this year. this year. Oh, you're just tasting the IPA again. Aren't you?
Yeah. Quick update. The Tree Shaker Imperial Peach IPA. I think I like it better warm.
Interesting. All right, I'll have to try that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being a part of the show for 135 episodes. Unbelievable. And I think we're far enough into the show that our critical review dude maybe isn't watching anymore, so I can say no one has stepped in and stopped it. Yeah, no one.
Nobody. And for any of you out there entertaining the thought of donating to my MS-150 fund, that will be happening next weekend.
Okay, so
next weekend. So we got one more show before that happens.
Yep. And they can also do this by going to the New Potato and ordering beers. Right?
Absolutely. You go to the New Potato, order any Bell's beer. They'll give you a raffle ticket, which gives you a chance to win swag at the end of the month, and $1 of your purchase goes into my MS-150 fund, which goes towards multiple sclerosis, which is awesome.
Thing. Yep, good thing to.
And I'll repost a link on the Facebook here soon.
You know how at the end of the show, I like to do we like to do the cheers.
Yes, sir.
Well, my cup is empty of the barley wine, and I was just wondering if you might be able to
the barley wine.
If you might be able to help me with the cheers.
How's Johnny going to taste this?
I know. You better leave a little for him. Thank you guys for being a part of the show this week. This has been a fun one. Show number 136 will most likely be coming to you next week from our sponsor location, which is B&B in Houston. Have a great week, my friends. Get some of this barley wine, but not until I get a couple of more bottles, just in case it's really limited. Have a great week. We appreciate you checking out Smoking and Toasting, and
cheers.
Cheers. Oh, my God, this is good.
That is such a good barley.